Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. Do you have a quick announcement? You can still compete to win a blue jacket. You can earn 3 months of Global Plus and a blue jacket. More about that in just a minute. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks, like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index. SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions or comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, October 29th. First of all, we'll go to news items, economic data, events, and earnings for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups, time permitting, and then I'll get to live market. And of course, I will stop whatever I'm doing. The FOMC announcement is at 2 p.m. and I will stop whatever I'm doing. We'll watch the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ to see how markets are reacting to the announcement and the statement. And then the press conference begins at 2:30. All right, let's dive in on news just a little bit more, but briefly again. Here's this blue jacket competition, and all you have to do is take a screenshot of your Bookmap, mark it up, Bookmap setup, mark it up, post it on X, LinkedIn, or Instagram, or all three with the hashtag #FreeBlueJacket for a chance to win 3 months of Global Plus with your choice of stocks or futures data and a Bookmap branded blue jacket. All right, let's move on. Of course, today, FOMC. Again, FOMC announcement at 2 p.m., press conference at 2:30. So a quarter point rate cut is expected. This is the current target rate, 400 to 425 basis points. And there's about a 2% chance of no cut, keeping that current target rate, and then about a 98% chance of a quarter point rate cut. All right, so that's what the market is expecting. So the fireworks may come with the press conference, or if there's if there are any significant changes in the statement. All right, so the next big news item, earnings reports. So this afternoon, Google or Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, all report earnings after the close. And these hyperscalers, I think, traders and investors will be very focused on what they say about capital expenditures. Are they going to continue to spend to build out data centers? So that will most likely be the focus of the earnings releases this afternoon and the conferences. And then tomorrow, Apple and Amazon report. So let's take a look at that. So this is this afternoon. Meta, Alphabet, Microsoft all report earnings. Expected moves within the range of 4% to a little under 6% for Meta, and then lower for Microsoft. And then tomorrow, Apple and Amazon report earnings. So here we'll start with Apple. Expected move about 3%, and then Amazon a little bit more at just under 6%. And then, of course, there are many other stocks reporting, companies reporting earnings. Also tomorrow, the meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, that's expected sometime tomorrow, I believe. All right, let's move on now. Let's take a look at the landscape, especially in the indices, to get set up for the FOMC announcement at 2 p.m. So let's start with the S&P 500. This is the S futures and Bookmap, and a slight downtrend today, mostly chop. And if this is like any other FOMC day, this portion of the chart will be a flat line compared to what comes after. All right, so before we take a closer look at this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at our higher time frame. I'm going to go to the SPX, the underlying index, and this is a 1 year, 1 day chart in Thinkorswim. Most recent price action. Here's the tariff tantrum on Friday, October 10th, when Trump announced additional tariffs on China based on their export controls of rare earth minerals. And then after that, SPX moved higher, tried to recover, and then that recovery has just accelerated. And SPX making new highs every day. All right, so let's take a look at that recent price action a little bit more closely. Let's go to a 30-day 1 hour chart. And I'm going to zoom in on this. That 6,000 line down below, that's a large gamma too, not significant. Whoops. All right, so here's the Friday, October 10th, tariff tantrum, and then the rally, the recovery really began on Tuesday the next week. SPX making a series of higher lows, but still finding a resistance at this key 6750 level. And then broke out of that range last Friday based on the benign CPI data. And then again, the move just accelerated higher, gaps up. And now, so far, the high 69.20. All right, so again, key last Friday broke out of this 67.50 resistance level up to around 69.20. So that's a move up about 170 points. And then now let's take a look at the levels on this chart. I'm going to start with the expected moves. Dashed purple lines showing the lower and upper weekly expected move based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Hello, Amir. Welcome. Glad you're here. And note, SPX is trading up above the upper weekly expected move. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. And then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market. That's based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. And I do post the expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ every day the day before. So again, SPX trading up above the upper daily expected move, also above the 6,900 level, but still within the daily expected range. That may change after the announcement and press conference. All right, let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're based on gamma-weighted open interest, and I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, the volatility trigger is down here at 67.45. That's Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. And below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And this is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model. We'll take a look at a more current picture of gamma based on their newer synthetic open interest model in just a minute. All right, so that level did move down 100 points from yesterday. All right, the next level up is the put wall at 68.40. That's a strike with large negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And that level is being influenced by the iron condor that was in place yesterday and then at the same put level again today. So that is the being influenced by the Captain Condor, Iron Condor. We'll take a look at that in the Trace Gamma heat map in just a minute. Next level up is 7,000. That is both the absolute gamma strike and the call wall. So the absolute gamma strike is the strike with largest absolute positive and negative gamma. And then the call wall is strike with the largest net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. So that level, the call wall, did move up from 6,900 yesterday, which was being influenced again by the Captain Condor, Iron Condor. So the call wall back up to 7,000 now, and the absolute gamma strike up at that level as well. All right, so those are the key daily levels. Let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart. So you can see this uptrend accelerated. And then consolidation today, again, very typical on the Wednesday before a FOMC statement. And it looks like so far today, this combo 2 level around this level acting as support. That is at 68.98. That's a combo 2 level, combining SPY and SPX gamma into one level. In this chart, in terms of SPX price. All right, so narrow consolidation with a slight downtrend. And let's take a quick look at SPY. SPY also trading in a narrow range with a slight downtrend. All right, back to Bookmap. So here's this SPX 68.98 level that I mentioned, acting as support. Then the 6900 level just above that. And then the 6915 level. We'll see that in the Trace Gamma heat map. That is part of the Iron Condor again, the Captain Condor, Iron Condor. So around that level, SPX did, SPX did break above that level, but now back down below, testing that short strike of that's the call spread of the Captain Condor, Iron Condor. All right, now there's a difference in price between ES and SPX. Right now it's about 32 points. So the ES to SPX offset actually right now looks like closer to 31. I'm using 32, so I'm showing 6,900 at ES 6932. But again, it looks like it has shifted a little bit lower down to 31 right now. No, back up toward, it's somewhere between 31 and 32. So I'm using 32. All right, I mentioned shifts and levels. For SPX, volatility trigger lower, call wall higher. And there was one shift for SPY, the absolute gamma strike shifted lower. All right, let's move on to NASDAQ. Here's the NQ futures and Bookmap. And we'll take a look at setups in just a few minutes. And let's step back. Let's take a look at the underlying indexes. So first of all, QQQ. Also trading in a narrow range. And now up and down around the C2 at 635. Combo 2 level. All right, that's QQQ. That's the only Spotgamma level currently in play. Let's take a look at NDX. NDX in between the volatility trigger down below. Oops, let me zoom out just a little bit. Volatility trigger down at 26,025. And then up above the call wall at 26,200. And that's also the absolute gamma strike. So for NDX, all four key lead levels shifted higher. That's very bullish. And then for QQQ, there was a bullish hat trick. The volatility trigger, call wall, and absolute gamma strike all shifted higher. So traders have high expectations, it looks like, for the Mag 7 earnings, or the 5 of the Mag 7 earnings coming out today and tomorrow. All right, back to Bookmap. And again, the only Spotgamma level currently in play is this QQQ 635 combo 2 level. All right, let's take a look at Gamma to wrap up our positional analysis. And I've still got about 11 minutes to FOMC. So this is the current picture of Gamma. This is the Gamma heat map. It's available in Trace. It's available to Spotgamma subscribers. Red shading shows negative Gamma. Blue shading shows positive Gamma. Remember, in negative Gamma, we're looking for more volatility, and actually I'm back at 9:40. Let's go back. Let's go to the current time. So now this is current, a picture of the current time. So red shading pretty much within this range shown on the chart, with a little bit of blue positive gamma up around 7,000, the call wall key gamma strike. So this is for SPX. This is the gamma heat map, current picture of the gamma heat map, showing red shading, negative gamma all around for the most part. This indicates there's a potential for pretty high volatility after the FOMC announcement. So we're, based on this, I would be looking for a lot of movement. All right, let's take a look at the GEX bars over on the left. So let me go back to 9:30, the cash open. So this was the Captain Condor here. This is showing market makers gamma exposure. Blue bars again, positive gamma. So this would mean that the traders are short 69.15 calls and long 69.25 calls. Market makers have the opposite position, so they are long calls and short calls here. So that's that 69.15 level that was tested earlier today. All right, let's step forward 10 minutes. And now we see another call spread has come in up above at 69.65 at 69.70. All right, let's go to current time now. So we know that 69.15 level was tested earlier today, but now still remains in place as a 99 percentile strike. So SPX is not very far from that, and that would certainly be the first target on the upside, and next target potentially at 69.65. And there's plenty of negative gamma to facilitate that move. All right, let's take a look and see what options traders have been doing today so far. So this is the Hero signal. Note I'm looking at the older version of Hero. I find it a little bit easier to use for this presentation. There is a new version of Hero available. I have switched back to the older version for this presentation. Again, I just find it a little bit easier to use when I'm jumping quickly from one symbol to another. All right, so this is the S&P 500 index Hero signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. And that is, we've already looked at two of those. That's SPY and SPX. And it also includes XSP and ES. Orange line shows calls. Blue line shows puts. And the white line is price for SPX. So the direction of the lines indicates options delta. So a rising orange line, for example, indicates traders are buying calls. And when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy, in this case, ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. And a falling blue line indicates traders are buying puts. All right, so that was the picture for the first half hour this morning. Traders buying calls, buying puts. And it looks like in the first half hour, the call buyers were in charge. And then right at 10 a.m., the call buyers took their foot off the gas. Put buyers started aggressively buying puts. And price moved lower. So the call buyers took their foot off the gas. That fuel that had been driving price higher was gone, and price moved lower as they pretty much switched from call buyers to put buyers. And then there's another signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. This is the S&P 500 equity signal, and it paints a pretty similar picture, showing for the first half hour traders buying calls in the S&P 500 index components, all 500 stocks. And then at 10 a.m., they stopped buying calls and started buying puts more aggressively. Price moved lower. All right, that's the S&P 500 index. Looks like some call buyers have come in now in the equity signal, the equities, and that's not the case in the index signal. The hero lines are pretty much flat for calls and puts. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. So again, not much price action so far today. Price within a range of SPX, maybe 69.20 or so, and then 68.98 on the downside, with a slight bearish downtrend, especially earlier today. So it looks like there was a kind of a downward channel here earlier today, and then maybe resolving into consolidation before the announcement. Then here's the reversal this morning as the call buyers took their foot off the gas and they started buying puts. You can see the shift in order flow. The volume dots in Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. You can see the buyers are exhausted here. Let me zoom in just a bit. Buyers are exhausted at 10 a.m. Sellers come in. Price moves lower. All right, so that's the short. Brief bullish opening drive, then a short, as again the call buyers took their foot off the gas and started buying puts. And so far now it looks like trading at a range. Let's take a quick look at NASDAQ. All right, I've got about 3 minutes. All right, I'm going to watch CNBC on another screen. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ. So NASDAQ, resistance QQQ 637 on the upside and down to around 634 on the downside. Let's take a quick look at Hero. We'll go to the NASDAQ index signal showing options trades and market maker hedging activity. For the NASDAQ index components that we've already taken a look at, QQQ and NDX. Brief bullish opening drive, then traders started buying puts, started selling calls. Price moved lower. Now it looks like the options traders have taken the foot off the gas. Let's take a look at the Mag 7. All right, so somebody is coming in buying calls, or a lot of traders buying calls starting around 12:15. And we'll take a look at, after the announcement, we'll take a look and see if we can figure out which stocks those are where traders are buying calls. All right, I'm going to shift to the total signal, and I'm going to go back. We'll focus on the S&P 500 first. So I'm going to go to the S&P 500 index signal, and then I'll open up another Hero chart. And I'm going to go to the S&P 500 equities, open up full screen, zoom in on both of these charts so I can keep these views zoomed in. So we'll watch options trades after the announcement and statement. All right, go to Hero, Bookmap. All right, let's go back to ES, zoom in on this. All right, so I've got about 15 seconds. Notice the heat map in Bookmap has cleared out now, as traders have removed most of their orders before the announcement. All right, of course, the announcement has come out. I'm waiting on CNBC, which is going to be delayed just a little bit. So far, it looks like a positive reaction. Let's zoom in on this just a bit more. All right, as expected, quarter point rate cut, 25 basis points. And by now, the algos have parsed the statement. So far, a bullish reaction, slightly bullish. But it looks like some sellers are starting to come in. So that was a stop run, shown by the rising yellow line. Now it looks like some large traders are coming in with iceberg orders. That's shown by the blue line, light blue line there. We'll take a look at Hero in just a minute to see what options traders are doing. All right, so again, quarter point rate cut. Slightly bullish reaction. Large traders buying with iceberg orders. Let's check Hero. Let's see what options traders are doing, see how they're reacting. And the Hero signal for the S&P 500 index signal is moving higher. Check the equities, and also continues to move higher. All right, so far I don't see any headlines from CNBC. Options traders taking bullish positions. Let's go back to Bookmap. And now looks like maybe breaking down a little bit. Back down to this level that was support earlier today, the SPX 6898 combo 2 level. Fed says economic activity expanding at a moderate pace. Job gains have slowed. So pretty choppy price action. We'll give this another minute or two, and then I do want to take a look at some stocks. So far, ES trading at about a 15-point range. After the announcement, let's check NASDAQ. All right, NASDAQ also trading in a narrow range. Looks like Fed to end quantitative tightening. Back to ES. All right, now ES is broken down below the 68.98 level. Let's check Hero. So options traders have turned negative delta. Check equities. And the equity signal has flattened out. Fed says inflation has moved up since earlier this year, remains somewhat elevated. And that could limit future rate cuts. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so still pretty choppy. Looks like this large volume dot right here kind of dominating. I'm going to have to bump up the volume dots a little bit. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. Let's see how traders are preparing for the earnings this afternoon. And let's take a look, first of all, at Google. Very nice uptrend today. Let's see what options traders have been doing. So I'm going to shift back to puts and calls. We'll go to Google. So there's that, looks like that data outage right there. So today in Google, traders are buying calls. They're also selling puts. And remember, let's go back to the Mag 7 signal. Remember, this call line started to shift higher about 12:15. We'll take a look at Google, Meta, Microsoft, and then track some of the other Mag 7s to see where that came in. All right, so Google, pretty choppy hero signal, but traders definitely buying calls and selling puts, shown by the rising lines and the positive delta notional. Setting up a nice long today, and this is also how traders are positioning. Let's see if this is. So it looks like the call buyers are definitely more longer term. I'm comparing the orange line with the green line showing next expiry. That would be Friday expiration. Versus this orange line is all expirations. So let's turn that off. All right, so that's Google. Back to Bookmap. Very bullish day in Google. Well, let's check Meta. So in Meta, there was a bearish opening drive, and it looks like consolidation now. Let's see what options traders have been doing. And by the way, Brent Kachuba, the founder of Spotgamma, had a very nice presentation, very great information about how to use all Spotgamma tools to find and set up a trade, an earnings trade in a stock. And I don't know if that was available to the public or just Spotgamma subscribers. That was 9:30 this morning. Highly recommended. If you are a Spotgamma subscriber and missed that, I really suggest you take a look at that. And again, I don't know if it's available to the public or not. All right, let's take a look at Meta, see what options traders have been doing. All right, so overall, just the opposite for Meta today. Traders are selling calls and buying puts, shown by the falling lines and the negative delta notional. All right, so that rising orange line and the Mag 7, definitely not with Meta. So this is a very nice bearish opening drive. Traders selling calls at the open, buying puts. Flow alert comes in, signal significant options activity, get your attention. Price moves lower. Then the call sellers take the foot off the gas. Looks like a large institutional block order there, buying calls. Then some selling again. But overall, a bearish opening drive and then a bearish day. Now consolidation in Meta. In a Meta, you can see the falling cumulative volume delta, so just the opposite of Google. All right, let's take a look at Microsoft now. All right, Microsoft, similar to Meta, bearish opening drive, then consolidation. You can see all the green volume dots that started to come in just before 10 a.m. So there were some aggressive buyers, and they still remain. Let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Microsoft. And this is really driven by mostly call sellers. So another very nice bearish opening drive. And you recall Microsoft gapped up pretty significantly yesterday based on news with their partnership with OpenAI. And looks like Microsoft has probably given back all that. All right, so bearish opening drive, flow alert, traders sell calls, market makers buy the calls, and price moves lower. All right, so that call line and the Mag 7 signal does not belong to, is not due to Microsoft either. In Microsoft, again, traders are buying puts and selling calls. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, there were a couple of other stocks that I wanted to take a look at, but let's go back to the indexes first. All right, ES trading in a pretty narrow range. It did break down below the 68.98 level and found support at the SPY 687.3 combo 2 level. Now moving higher. Check NASDAQ. Also a narrow range. Hello, Stephen. Welcome. Glad you're here. Stephen asked if I ever trade 6E futures. No, I don't. And is there 6E options for currencies? That I don't know. You would need to go to a trading platform. Well, I can do that in a minute. So let me take a look at a couple of other stocks. Then we'll see if there are options for 6E. I'll go to Thinkorswim to check that. All right, so I wanted to take a look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA was very strong this morning, and there was a brief bullish opening drive and then a reversal in NVIDIA, but mostly green volume dots here, aggressive buyers. So let's take a look, see what options traders are doing. Let's go to NVIDIA, and there we see the rising orange line. Traders buying calls. So that's where the rising orange line in the Mag 7 and S&P 500 equities, that's where that came from. All right, let's zoom in on this. So we see a bullish opening drive here. Traders buy calls, flow alert just after the open. Traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock that has their delta exposure. Whoops. So now the call buyers have come back in. Let's go back to Bookmap. Call buyers have come back in, and NVIDIA found support at 205, now trying to move higher. Other stock I wanted to take a look at is Palantir, is very strong this morning. And unlike NVIDIA, it looks like it's held on to its gains. So very nice bullish opening drive in Palantir. Let's see what options traders are doing. And it took a little while for the call buyers to get going. About 10 to 15 minutes. Full alert comes in, signaling significant options activity. Call buyers drive price higher, take the foot off the gas, and now Palantir consolidating. And if Palantir continues up, next target is the 200 call wall key gamma strike. Those are the stocks that I wanted to take a look at. And let's go back to the indexes. And I'm going to go back to the S&P 500 and stick to puts and calls. And so far, overall call sellers. And now a few put buyers. So it looks like bearish momentum in the S&P 500 starting to move a little bit lower. Let's go check Bookmap. Well, we'll check equities. So the equity signal is still slightly moving up, but now has flattened out a bit. And we'll need to go check Bookmap. And ES back down to that SPY level, 687.3. Again, finding support there. All right, let's check for 6E options. So let's go to /6E. Go to the trade tab. So there are options available for for 6E. It looks like decent open interest is also. This is the current expiration here. This is showing open interest. So this is pretty decent size. So there you go, Stephen. You can, if you want, you can trade options on 6E. All right, we'll go back to SPX. All right, so again, ES found support, 687.3. And you're welcome, Stephen. Now NASDAQ moving higher. All right, let's go back to Hero. So we tracked down that call line in the S&P 500 equities. Afternoon call buying began about 12:15. That's in the SB equities, Mag 7. So let's check the other Mag 7s. Apple, not quite as extreme as NVIDIA, but traders started buying calls about the same time in Apple. So that's contributing. Check Amazon. No, Amazon moving the other way. So Apple and Amazon report earnings after the market closes tomorrow. And we already checked Google, Meta, Microsoft. Last one is Tesla. And so traders are buying calls in Tesla as well. But this looks like the most systematic buying right here. Almost like an algo buying calls in NVIDIA. Let's check one other thing. Let's check tape. And we can check options volume. And, all right, this is interesting. NVIDIA is right at the top of this list. So normally the top list, top 5 would be SPX, SPY, QQQ, NVIDIA, and Tesla. So let's move down just a little bit. So Tesla has moved to the number 6 position with IWM up above. Palantir, the stock that we took a look at, also the number 7 position. But this is very interesting. With a stock, NVIDIA definitely dominating the options volume today. All right, back to Hero. Back to NVIDIA. Let's go back to the S&P 500 index. And still just choppy price action. Waiting on the press conference that begins in 10 minutes. And hello, I'm sorry, I can't begin to pronounce your name. Oguz, welcome, glad you're here. All right, anyone have any questions, comments? Back to Bookmap. All right, there's NASDAQ. So again, ES trading in a pretty narrow range after the announcement. We'll take a look at the overall picture for the day. Still slightly downward bias. Check NASDAQ. All right, so this is pretty much expected. The outcome of the announcement was widely expected, and that's exactly what happened. And then the fireworks should come with the press conference that begins in about 8 minutes. And Abu, sorry again, I can't pronounce that. Welcome, glad you're here, and you're very welcome. Thank you, thank you. And Fed is to end quantitative tightening in December. So it looks like NASDAQ. Earlier today, kind of a downward trending channel, and then now mostly trading in a range. And waiting on the press conference. Looks like ES wants to test this SPY combo level again. Let's check trace. Let's see what's happening in the gamma landscape. Go to trace. All right, so if there is a big move to the downside, this is not a 99 percentile strike, but it's the next largest positive gamma, and that would be the short put of the Captain Condor Iron Condor that was put on yesterday. But the biggest strike on the board by far is the 69.15, 99 percentile strike. So if there's a move up, it looks like that strike would be taken out pretty quickly. But again, negative gamma all around. Let's check charm pressure. All right, charm pressure showing current zone, red, negative selling pressure due to time decay with some positive above and below. So potential pin targets right here, right at 6,900 with blue buying support, a little bit of blue buying support below, red selling pressure above, and then 68.60. And I'm not sure this can be counted on. It doesn't look very likely. Check delta pressure. So this is typical of negative gamma, blue buying support above and red selling pressure below. Again, typical of a negative gamma. This is showing the hero signal right here, this line, and it is ticking down. All right, back to equities hero. It is flattened out. Looks like the lows are holding. But SPX definitely making lower highs. And let's go to the index signal. Shift back to total. And I'm going to have to jump. Jump back. Stephen says I usually use the gamma setting and sometimes charm synthetic open interest. All right, so the S&P 500 index signal, which is typically a little bit more noisy than the equity signal, but shows the turning points more quickly, more clearly, is definitely moving down. Traders taking negative delta options positions. So far with a very modest minus 3.25 billion. Decent size, but I've seen much larger. But the end of the day is not here yet. 2 more hours. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so obviously now waiting on the press conference. And Ogu says, you're great about pronunciation. Thank you very much. All right, does anyone, before we wrap up, anyone have any questions or stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, back to Hero, still ticking lower. Equities, flat. Check NASDAQ. All right, one last check of the stocks that report earnings. Still very bullish for Google. Continues to make higher lows, higher highs. Meta. Still consolidating. I guess in its lower third of the range for the day. Microsoft. Still also in the lower third of the range today with a lot of green volume dots. Let's take a quick look at Apple and Amazon, which both report earnings after the close. Looks like a bullish day in Apple, or a nice bullish reversal. So bullish opening drive, reversal lower now, reversal higher, back toward highs of the day. Let's see what options traders have been doing in Apple. And we'll shift to puts and calls. Go to Apple. Buying calls, yeah, we looked at that before. Call buyers coming in. Amazon, call sellers, put buyers. All right, everyone, I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. And Oguz asked, do I have a teaching program? Not really, but I do offer one-on-one mentoring. So if you contact me in Discord, Doug P. Discord, I'll be glad to provide more information. All right, everyone, again, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments, and have a good afternoon and good luck trading this afternoon. Thanks again. Bye.